It is the newest Stephen King novel adaptation and is the remake of the 1990 movie, TV, mini-series, whatever the fuck it is, whatever, It. And it is also the most obnoxious film title. I get it, I understand why you call it that, but like, come on. It's like calling your movie That. You know, let's go see That. You guys want to go see That? Hey, let's go check out That. Like, you get where I'm coming. Never mind. I don't fucking. So, going into this movie, I had a lot of different thoughts. I don't really like seeing scary movies. I'm not saying it's because I'm a pussy, but I am. And so I usually don't get around to seeing horror movies like this because I'm a pussy. But this one had gotten reviews to the point where I couldn't ignore this one. They were far better than I had imagined. They were actually sensational. And I was pretty shocked. And I really kind of got excited to see this movie and went to go see it. And it is great. It is a great movie. For a simple reason. A very simple reason. It's well thought out. Which, for some filmmakers, is hard to imagine doing. Thinking about things, thinking about their movies. And this movie could just have easily been some hack director and some hack screenwriters sit down and go, hey, people like that 1980, 1990, whatever the fuck, It. So let's just do that again. We'll just rehash it and do the same thing. People will go see that. People will go see that. You know what I'm saying? But instead, what they do is they sit down and they think about every little thing that's put into this movie. Everything is meticulous. Everything is executed in a certain way. And it's executed very close to perfection. I have very few issues with this movie, but they are there. Interestingly enough, they're similar issues I have with the original movie. Because there are a couple problems I have with the original movie that are in this one, but then this movie also gets rid of a lot of the problems that the original It had. Like sort of how the ending plays out. I thought the ending of the original It is very disappointing and feels like a fucking Men in Black movie. That's beside the point. I'm not talking about that movie. But I'm going to get into why this movie's great. I'll talk a little bit about the flaws. The first thing I want to talk about is the scares in this movie. It's become relatively obvious to the average filmgoer or the average movie critic or people that overall just know things about movies or even go see movies, that the two hardest genres to make are horror and comedy because they're subjective. There are arguments to be made as to whether that's true or not, but that's the argument that's been made, and that's why, more than likely, probably, like, when you look at genres, you'll see the ratio of good to bad is probably shittiest in those two genres. You know, some people go, oh, this is scary, and some people go, no, that's not scary, this is scary, and those other people will go, that's not scary. So it's very hard to appeal to a wide audience. That's why making these kinds of movies is hard. So you really have to try and go in and not be objective to your own personal preferences when you watch movies like this. However, what this movie really does right is it makes its scares original. Most of the scares in this movie, whether that's jump scares or genuine psychological terror, all of that is very original. They're mostly never before seen, which is great, because then you don't know what's coming next. That should be what all horror movies are. That's what all the best horror movies are. They're the ones that you don't know what's coming next because you've never seen anything like that before. The original movie does this for half of the movie, and then it gets into the adult part of the film, and it's very repetitive, and it starts kind of pulling the same shit and doing the same scares because it almost runs out of things to do. This movie doesn't really make that mistake. Because there's, a rapid fire sequence where all of the kids are seeing the clown, seeing Pennywise, and the different ways they're seeing him, and they're all very different. They're all in different sets. They all have different visual effects with them. They all have different lighting. And I know it sounds like I'm looking at the little things, but those things can make all of the difference. The scares are different. They're either gory, they're violent, they're jump scares, they're psychological terror. They're all very different. So you're always feeling this variety, and it makes you have this feeling of, oh shit, what comes next? That's very important when you're making a horror movie. This movie does that very well. I'm not saying it does that 100% of the time. There are a couple of scares in this movie that you're sitting there and you're going, okay, I know what's about to happen, I'm ready for it. But that's any horror movie. I've never seen a horror movie all the entire way through and not gone, here comes a jump scare, or here comes a scare, or this is going to be a scary sequence and this is going to happen. That's just how it works, unfortunately. That's mainly how it works with every genre, except for like a select few films. But this movie does a really great job really working to get outside of those tropes as much as it possibly can, and it really does a great job doing that. The other thing that I really noticed in terms of thought and what was put into this film is the casting. There are a lot of really terrible kid actors out there. Believe me, boy, they're all out there. And it's seemingly pretty rare to find great ones. You've got Jacob Tremblay, Jaden Lieberher, Abraham Ada. I'm sure there are more. I'm sure there are. Daniel Radcliffe. This movie didn't just go, alright, let's hire a bunch of kids who can't act, and people will go, well, it's 'cause they're kids. This movie decides to go, no, we're going to cast people that A, fit the role, and B, are good actors. And that's what this movie does, specifically with the child actors. I really like Jaden Lieberher. He's really good in St. Vincent and Midnight Special. Notice I'm leaving 2 of his movies out. He's a really great actor when he's given stuff to work with. He's a little choppy at the beginning. He's a little too much. He's a little over the top. Like, the stutter didn't feel very natural, which is a big part of his character. As the movie goes on, he gets much and much better when he's given more emotional stuff to work with, and he's given more depth to his character. He gets much better. The one standout that I really want to talk about is the Stranger Things kid. It's like Finn White Wolf, or it's similar to the guy's name from Dunkirk, I think. He's impeccable in this movie. He is, you want to walk out and go, man, I really remember Pennywise. Man, I remember that kid. He is funny. He's natural. You understand him. He's got a character to him. He's always doing the right thing at the right time. I'm not saying like his character-wise, I'm saying in terms of his dialogue and his acting. He is hilarious, but there's character to him. He's interesting. That kid is a great actor. He's excellent in this. I've not seen Stranger Things because I know I'm going to be disappointed because all of the people in my grade going, you haven't seen Stranger Things? Dude, it's so good. You've got to see it. Like, it's one of the best. It's so good. I know I'm gonna watch it and just be like, okay, it was fine. It was overhyped. Thanks, assholes. But he's great. All the kids are great. I wish I knew all their names. I don't. They're all really good when they're given stuff to work with, which they most commonly are. I guess I'll sort of get into one of my little issues now. The only one that I had a problem with, and it wasn't in terms of their performance, it was in terms of not their character. It's a problem I have with the original too, is the African-American kid. His character is totally fine. They actually work well to develop his character, and you really do see his arc throughout the entire movie. The issue I have with him is his development into the group when he's put into the Losers Club. It happens very quickly, which is fine. But they've had all of this development for the rest of the club for the last, 45 minutes of the movie. They've had time for all of them to come closer together as friends, and you see scenes of these kids doing that. And I think, 1 or 2 scenes after they meet the African-American kid, they're going to the house where Pennywise is, and you go, oh, that was quick. It doesn't feel very natural with his character, which is unfortunate. It's not a reflection on his character. It's not a reflection on his performance. It's a reflection on, I don't know, being too quick, and I guess introducing him almost too late. And the original movie does that too, where it introduces him. It actually had a little more development with him in terms of the group, but it's beside the point. Other than that, all the kids are great. Bill Skarsgård is who you've been hearing about since this movie came out. I can concur with everyone else who's been talking about him. He's great. You can sit down and compare Tim Curry and his performance all day long. You shouldn't. They're 2 very, very different performances. They're even their voices are completely different. Their demeanor is completely different. Their outfits are completely different. How they look as a whole with their face and the makeup is completely different. They're very different portrayals of a character, and I think that it's unfair to try and say, well, this one's better, or this one's better. They both have things that work better, but they also have things that aren't as superior. So there's my view on it, I guess. But Bill Skarsgård is great, man. He's fucking terrifying. That thing he does with his eyes, oh, that shit. No, that was not okay. And like I was kind of talking about, the visual effects are great. The 1990 movie is very dated when you go back to it and you watch it. Not just in terms of visual effects, but like there are a bunch of these fades and fades to black, and you sit there and you go, yeah, this fucking thing was made in 1990. This movie has great visual effects. The costume design, the makeup is great, especially on Pennywise. He has a great character look. I really, really like the way his character looks. The color palette on this movie is great. The cinematography is excellent. The cinematography is really, really excellent. I love the way this movie was shot. There's an unfortunate, like, action scene towards the end, which is shot a little choppily. That's some editing issues, too, but nothing too bad. Like, it's one of those shaky scenes. You can still understand what's going on, but it's almost, at times, a little too much. You want to go, alright, like, tone it down a little bit. But technically, this movie really, really works. Like I said, I had a problem with that one kid. And then the first, like, after the first scene, there are a couple of issues in terms of, like, cliches. I don't want to say full-on cliches, but there are a couple of things that you kind of go, this is an original movie, and this little thing stands out because it's very generic and basic. And they build on it later. But the setup for it, for me, at times, led me to go, okay, this is a little bit, been there, done that. I hope they add to this. And they ended up doing that. But it didn't change the fact that the setup was a little off. Other than that, man, this movie is really, really great. This movie's really, really great. I loved it. I don't usually love horror movies. I definitely recommend getting out to check this movie out, especially if you are a Stephen King fan, a fan of the book, a fan of the original movie. I think you're really going to enjoy this movie. The movie's not getting good reviews for no reason. It's not a load of shit. It's genuinely a well-made film, a well-made horror film, and I think it's definitely one to get out there and check. If I had to rate it, I'd probably throw it a 9 out of 10. I have very limited problems with it. I'd have to see it again if I really wanted to nitpick it, because I was very invested into the movie. Everything feels very natural, which is very good with it. That's one of the things that the movie really succeeds on. So, what did you guys think? Have you seen it? Have you not seen it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.